What's going on, good people? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you're watching this video. It is I, yes, your commissioner, Brennon, Brennan, here again with another rap recap for the week 7 matchups of the 2024 Retroactive Purple Fantasy Football season. I appreciate y'all for participating. We are past the trade deadline. Otherwise, this video would have been out a little earlier, but I had to make my last second deliberations and moves and attempts to try to improve my roster. So you get in this video a little later, Wednesday afternoon or evening. Shooting for Tuesdays in future weeks. Anywho, wrap up for today. As you can see, hopping right into it, I got lucky. I'm not even gonna lie to you. And I say that because I fully expected to blow my opponent out, not because I lucked up with my score over my projections. This is way under projections. I should have got 250, 260. But in the afternoon and evening games on Sunday and the Monday night games, I did not get the performances I expected. So the 218, the 212 victory for the River City Rollers is not one I'm very comfortable with. We still have about 5 days left for potential stat corrections, so I'm holding my breath. I'm not gloating or celebrating too much. But as it stands currently, your commissioner did get the victory over. We got 2 words for you. We got 2 words for ya, aka Harrison. I almost said Harrison Butker. Hell no. What's your last name, Harrison? God, dog. Harrison Decker. Rookie to Retroactive Purple. Been performing like a veteran. Record is currently 3-4 only because of this matchup, but he's been putting up some really good performances throughout the season. Leaning on Anthony Richardson may have come to his detriment. Who's the other quarterback? Daniel Jones. Well, those are the two. I tried to trade Harrison several times. This gentleman right here, even though he's ranked number 4 in fantasy, he's number 1 in our hearts. Josh Allen, one of the difference makers in this matchup, because I definitely would not have had a quarterback of his caliber left since Justin Fields got benched, and I didn't really look for any other replacements. So I'm glad I held on to Josh Allen. I'm glad y'all rejected the trades. Hopefully that'll help me down the stretch as I've tried to improve my roster in other ways. Saquon Barkley definitely helped out as well with a whale of a game. I think he had an opportunity to break his personal record in rushing, and he ended up just sitting out the last couple of series. He was tearing the Giants' ass up. 176 yards and a touchdown for 27.7 points. I think he also had some receiving, just 2 receptions for 11 yards. So it was mostly on the ground, which is crazy. In this day and age, to see a running back do that, not named Derrick Henry, is just refreshing for me personally. So they led the way for the Rollers. Brock Bowers has become the de facto number 1 receiver in Vegas for the Raiders. He gave me 93 yards, 16 points in fantasy. Devontae Adams got traded from the Raiders, promptly put up basically nothing. I'm sure it'll take him some time to get his feet in New York. He'll get his chemistry back with Aaron soon enough. I fully believe that. I just didn't want to wait on it. And I also didn't draft Devontae Adams to be a Jet. I drafted him because he was part of my team. So fandom did creep in. And I also wanted to maximize the value of Devontae in the trade. Feel like I did that by getting CMC. And we'll see if CMC is back soon enough. Hopefully week 9, week 10. But nevertheless, staying with this week, Calvin really did nothing for me. I had to ship him off too. Juju ended up getting hurt, so that also made this matchup much closer than I expected. I expected Juju to get like 10 to 15, as he did before the bye week for the Chiefs. But my defense, which has held me down all season, was the catalyst for the victory. Again, Luke Wilson. What am I doing with these actor references? Logan Wilson, 16 points. Justin Sternad, 19.5. Max had a down week and gave me 10 points. Leonard Williams popped out with a sack, 10 points. TJ Watt went MIA against the Jets, which he's going up against an all-time great in Aaron Rodgers. It makes sense, but still, I needed a little bit more from TJ. Another reason the score was so close. Julian Love, 19. Jalen Jones has been balling. Number 3 corner, probably be number 2 soon since Paulson Adebo had a season-ending injury. Jalen Jones and Alontae Taylor I've invested in multiple leagues. Along with this guy, D. Alford, been a godsend off the wire. I'm not really big on holding multiple corners. I like to really have, I'm big on having safeties, but my corners have been saving my life this season. So grateful for that. Keeping me in playoff contention with this victory. Making my record 3-4, dropping Harrison to 3-4. So I think I have the tiebreaker over him, going from 4th in the black hole to 2nd. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And I hope I have some guys that'll step up for me more. This guy should have been in the starting lineup. I just didn't trust it because of his snap share being inconsistent with the Landon Roberts. But he will definitely be starting the rest of the way, for sure. He gave me 14. Peyton Wilson, I say Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate. Quiet as kept. And yeah, I think I'll talk about my roster another day. But Harrison got some good performances as well. Quarterback was not one of them. I think that was the biggest reason for the loss. If Anthony Richardson gets a touchdown, Harrison wins this matchup. If he just completes a couple more passes, if he has an average or slightly below average quarterback performance, Harrison wins this matchup. That's a big reason why Harrison is 3-4 is because of that man, Anthony Richardson, unfortunately. Javonte Williams had a whale of a game. That threw me off, and that made me nervous. 24.6 points, 2 touchdowns. Nothing else from the offense. Tyler Goodson fell in the end zone, but the offense really gave Harrison no assistance. It was all from the defensive side. Nakobe Dean had 2 sacks. Who was tearing me up on Monday night? This dude, Cameron Dicker, tearing me up on Monday night. 5 for 5 for 19 points. I think he had some 50-yarders, 2 50-yard field goals to give him an extra 10 points of a boost. He was killing me on Monday night. And that made the score much closer as well because Harrison was projected for like a 190 up until Monday night. Good pickup with Jalen Carley's filling in for EJ Speed. Brian Branch did his thing. Yeah, it was a low-scoring, ugly game, but I made it through. So Black Hole is going to be interesting the rest of the way. Another matchup here to talk about. The Queens Brigade, a.k.a. Janine Truesdale, got the victory over Rob's Devil Dogs. Another all-division matchups this week. So big implications here with Rob Jordan being 2-4 at the time, as I was in my division, trying to stay alive in the division hunt in the playoff race. Janine pretty much put that to bed with a 252.16 to 195.54 victory. Not close at any point that I can recall. Solid performances across the board for Janine. Not so much from the offense as what I anticipated, but more so with the defensive side of the ball. Cody Barton kicked it off on Thursday night. I told Janine that night, well, this matchup's pretty much over with because Cody Barton went insane. 8 total tackles, I thought he had 2 sacks. 1 sack. He had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. I thought he had an interception as well. You can see on the screen here, just a complete game. Forced fumble away from the fumble return for a touchdown. So he had 2 times touching the ball on defense. A complete game, if we've ever seen one. 33 points. That was Thursday night, and it was just pretty much downhill from there for Rob Jordan. Tyler Nubin, Quentin Lake, double-digit scores. Kaiser White in the defensive flex spot. Grant Delpit was a good pickup off the wire. Austin Siebert has been riding the same wave that the Commanders have been performing very unexpectedly for anybody outside of DC. I thought they had some talent, but being able to put it together for high level victories and consistent victories early in the season, I wasn't expecting that. Even though I did get Siebert to fill in a couple leagues for my kickers bye weeks, I didn't think he would keep it up to be number 3 in the league. So great performances. Ivan Pace did his thing. He had a pick 6. A.J. Brown looked like A.J. Brown. Good win for Janine. Breece Hall, mostly effective on the ground. The Jets' running game has been shut down for most of the season. We thought Aaron Rodgers would help alleviate that stress by lightening the box. Hasn't been the case. Devin Lloyd, 11 total tackles and a sack. He's been thriving as he's been on the field, especially with Foye Oluokun missing time due to injury. But the Jaguars, man, well, they've been playing better. Let me take that back. They've been playing better in recent weeks. So we'll see if they can keep that momentum up. Sam Hubbard went off for 20 points. Definitely missed that Browns-Bengals matchup. What else did he do? He had a sack, forced a fumble, 3 total tackles. Oh, he had an interception. He did have an interception. I did see that. Okay. Jalen Carter went for 15, 2 sacks. Okay. Starting to look like he did at Georgia. Took a little minute. So a lot of defensive line help from Rob Jordan, but nothing else for real. Nothing else for real. Offense didn't really do too much. Going to talk about that one later. Deuce, a.k.a. D.V. Greer, a.k.a. Kimball Nightmare, got a very easy victory, very similarly to the one I just discussed, against the Chicago Rockstars, a.k.a. D. Will, a.k.a. David Wilson, 243.84 to 195.54. Rockstars haven't been performing so well this season. A lot of injuries, inconvenient bye weeks. You can see Pacheco there on the IR. Should have tried to trade him, to be honest, because at this point, we're fighting for our lives, fighting for our playoff lives. And off of a loss like this, where it drops D. Will to 3-4 in America's teams, and it moves Kimball Nightmare to 4-3. With the way that the wild card is going to shape up, how many owners are going to be close to 500, you got to do those moves that's going to separate you from those other average record owners like myself, because I ain't gonna let my team stay the same. I'm gonna try to get better. The team's not too bad. Jaden Daniels ended up getting hurt, which definitely affected the final score. I don't think it would have made a difference in the results. Justin Jefferson, they like Justin Jefferson things. Terry McLaurin has been the beneficiary of a revamped Washington offense, even after Jaden Daniels left. I think he only played like 2 plays or maybe 1 play. Terry McLaurin was still able to get his issue off with Marcus Mariota, which was encouraging. Drake London has finally started to catch his stride with Kirk Cousins. Number 5 in fantasy. I did not know that. Premised off of that week 5 game, you can see here, 29.4 points. But he's been consistent. Touchdowns have definitely helped him out. If you take 6 points away from every score, probably wouldn't be as impressive of a performance for a number 1 receiver. But 60 yards a game equals 1,000 yards a season, and a touchdown a game equals 16, 17 touchdowns a season. So he is on pace to have a great season, and he's being consistent. All you can ask for is consistency and solid performances, reliable performances to be in the lineup. I would take 15 points in my flex every week as well. So the receivers weren't the issue. No help from the running backs. Running back core is looking very shaky. But he's leaning heavy on receivers to compensate for that. The defense was okay. Defensive flexes gave him double digits. J.C. Horn, a DB. Rashawn Gary, Dorian Williams, Byron Young. He got some solid performances from the defense. Just the guys that didn't put up 12 to 15 pretty much put up less than 7 points, which that's not the formula for getting to that 230, 240 number to compete for a win. The single digit guys just had to put up at least like 7 or 8 instead of like 4 or 5. I think that's the biggest difference there. And the running back core and the quarterback situation definitely will be impactful down the stretch. Not much relief behind that. Sam Darnold, 17 to 20. Sometimes he'll hop out and give you 25. So it's not going to be that big of a support if Jaden Daniels has to miss time. But the rest of the bench is looking really shaky. You got to hope that Isaiah Pacheco heals up quick and gets back. Otherwise, with the trade deadline being passed, it's going to be a rough go, especially in this division with some of these other owners who are competing and have made strides to get better. Although, I'll touch on the division stuff later. Deuce filled in with Drake May. I'm assuming his quarterback was on bye. Who was that guy? Caleb Williams, the Bears were on bye. So Drake May filled in admirably, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, which was probably the most impressive part in his second performance as a rookie, second start. 24 points. Kyron Williams, 2 touchdowns against the Raiders. It looked ugly. 21.6 points. Very inefficient performance because he got those 76 yards on like 22 carries. But if they're committed to running the ball and give you the ball, it doesn't matter. If it's effective and it yields wins, the inefficiency can be overlooked. J.K. Dobbins only went for 8 points. He ended up getting traded, which will be interesting to see how committed they stay to him. For him to get 40 yards rushing and 26 yards receiving. Arizona's defense is really good. However, with a running back that they drafted, I think in the 3rd round, and Kamani Vidal, 4th round, how committed they're going to stay to JK moving forward with how he's cooled off from those first couple of weeks. Lad McConkey, same thing, rookie. The Chargers offense just looks really bad. For them to be a run-heavy scheme, hopefully will open up receiving lanes and passing lanes. It hasn't panned out like that for them. The record shows it. The performances on the film show it. Just an interesting offense to watch altogether. Njoku went for 20.6. He'll be the biggest beneficiary, unfortunately, for Deshaun Watson missing time. 10 receptions, 76 yards, and a touchdown. I think Jameis will really like throwing the ball to him. So to have that 1-2 punch of Njoku and Kyle Pitts, who's finally starting to look like a first-round pick with Kirk Cousins in tow, really kind of having better numbers than Drake London outside of the absence of touchdowns. That'll be a good tight end combo in the starting lineup for Deuce. And then the defense, which is the star of the show for Deuce. You can see double digits across the board until you get to the DBs. Had some down weeks. Jalen Petrie is not as consistent as what Deuce drafted him to be, what I've expected him to be since his rookie year. But still impactful performer in real life. Just doesn't translate necessarily to fantasy every week. Everybody else went out, balled out. 2 sacks from Dexter Lawrence. He was eating, doing his sack dance. Yaya Diaby has finally popped out. Looks like a star in Tampa. He had 14 points with a sack. Yeah, that was a victory with Will Lutz giving 17. Your kicker giving you 12, 13 plus points is always a bonus. Anytime you can get that kind of clutch performance from your kicker, just to boost that score another 10 to 15 points, that makes a big, big difference. I'm appreciative of that with Brandon Aubrey. Blowout here, not much to speak of. The original tribal chief, 3-time champion, Cortez Jackson, a.k.a. Tez, 288.82 to 188.5 over Negus and Paris. Pretty easy victory, a.k.a. Juan Redmond. Not much resistance there. Juan obviously been disengaged all season in the chat, and it looks like so as well with his roster management. Hasn't tried to do any trades. Has been active on the wire, but relatively inactive. Relegate candidate. Fast forwarding his way into relegation. 100 ball victory for Tez. Baker Mayfield, 35 points. Tank Bigsby, 25.8. 19.6 from Brian Thomas. Cade Otton, 15. Zaire Franklin, Roquan Smith went for 58 points between the two of them, which is crazy. Zach Bond went for 10 before he got banged up. Good pickup on Will McDonald. Did you draft Will or did you pick him up off the wire? Yeah, you had him. You didn't have that foresight. Good pickup for him. Kyle Hamilton, 20 points. Terrell Bernard, 18. Neville Hewitt, 24. A good pickup off the wire as well, filling in for 2020. So yeah, just a lot of booms, a lot of busts. If we look at these other scores from these other guys who did not perform well at all, but you had just enough booms to compensate for that, which, I mean, that's the name of the game, roster construction. If those guys can be consistent, then it's not going to matter. Still has a lot of firepower on the bench with Chubb. Alante Taylor is going to be the number one corner shortly in fantasy. So still got some support down there to fill in as necessary. James Conner looked like a bully on Monday night against the Chargers, 23.2 points. It's amazing he stays as healthy as he does. He does get nicked up and miss time every now and then, but he doesn't miss as much as you would think for how he plays. He plays very well. Aaron Rodgers had the 2 interceptions with his touchdown, 15 points. I think those numbers will begin to change. I still have confidence in him, even in his old football age of 40 years old. Now getting the extra weapon with the chemistry and the rapport he has with DA. I think those numbers will change. Start getting in those 20s, 25-point range per game, but we'll see. Romeo Doubs had a second good game in a row, 13.4 points, 8 receptions for 94 yards. Green Bay's receiving core is still very inconsistent in terms of who's going to be the guy, and the number 2 guy, number 3 guy. It just seems like a carousel every week. DeAndre Hopkins had a negative 0.7 points on 1 reception in Tennessee, and that was his last week in Tennessee. He has since been traded to the Chiefs. So holding on to him will definitely be a boost, going from the number 2 receiver in Tennessee to possibly the number 1 receiver in Kansas City. Big difference. Robert Spillane had a down week with only 10 points. Sherwood, 11 points. Also a down week since he has been starting. Quincy Williams, 11.5. So linebackers performed okay, but that's really the strength of the roster for Juan. So them guys not showing up did not help him at all. And you see the rest of the defense didn't do too much to write home about outside of Xavier McKinney. Had some injuries for sure. Had some bye weeks for sure, but nothing substantial to where it would have made a difference for 100 points. This was my matchup of the week. It was not as close as I expected. 259 points from Jordan Parks, a.k.a. Ray Loco's band of misfits against the Locks, a.k.a. Devon Sip Tingle. 208.08 points. The runner-up to the championship last season, I thought this would be a much closer matchup for Sip. But much like some of these other matchups I've described, not the best performance from too many guys. One of these guys is going to be out for about a month. And Mike Evans, he only got 1 touchdown catch, which was a great play on a bum hamstring, and he ended up exasperating the injury. So he only had 9 points there. Get out of here, Scam Likely. Only 9 points there. And he's going to be missing for a while. I don't know who the backup is. Adam Thielen's on IR as well for SIP. So 2 big support receivers on IR for him. Keenan Allen's hiding there, but he's not the Keenan Allen from last year in this Chicago offense. So it's going to really just be Wan'Dale Robinson and I don't know who else. I know SIP made a trade. I forget who it was for. Let me see if I can find that here. Looking on the laptop. Bear with me real quick. 1 second. He made a trade for... Come on. Oh, no, he made a trade for a defensive end when he needed a receiver. So, shout out to Sip. But Derrick Henry went for 26.7 points, 169 yards, and a touchdown. He was gashing Tampa Bay all night. Very, very ugly performance from Tampa, along with the injuries that they've suffered on offense. It was just a bad night for them. Geno Smith has been performing like a third-round pick in fantasy. 20.78 points from him, 2 touchdowns, 207 yards. Definitely has been assisting Sip's offensive performances as his best offensive players boomed. But now that those offensive players are getting banged up, it will be interesting to see how the offense responds and supports him in the absence of guys like Mike Evans and Adam Thielen. And he traded away Alexander Madison, who had 13.8 points in the flex spot, again, for a defensive end, and Harold Landry. So I don't know who that replacement will be at running back. It does not look like there's one here on the bench. Yeah, it's going to be a rough go on offense. Defense, Kareem Hunt's there, hiding in the other flex spots. 2 touchdowns, 21.3 points. So he's got his 2 running backs still, but it will literally be 2 running backs. Flex spots are going to be a big question mark. Not much help from the defense here. Bobby Okereke went for 12 points. Bobby Wagner, Devondre Campbell both had down weeks. Nick Bosa, 7 points. I mean, defensive ends, if they're getting 7 or 8 points, that's still a okay game for them. It might be down for the guys like Bosa, Max Crosby, TJ Watt, or whatever, but that's still acceptable at defensive end. Linebacker, not so much. Got to have double digits from those guys. Paulson Adebo is another casualty on the Locks roster. 9 points before he went on IR with a broken forearm. The injuries this week were nuts. Got a great game from Marlon Humphrey for 16. Had 2 interceptions in the end zone. It just didn't make sense how Baker was throwing those passes to Marlon Humphrey's direction. It was almost like he just tossed it. Like, it was like, I don't know. It looked fake. But good win for Jordan. Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdowns, throwing 281 yards, 44.44. That's a very unique score. 44.44 points. It's because of the fumbles lost. That's why. Could have went for 50 if he hadn't turned over the ball. Nevertheless, I mean, he's looking like he's going to go back-to-back MVP, and the Ravens are looking like the Super Bowl favorite. It always sucks when you are a fan of a team and you are not the owner of one of the best players on that team, and then you have to play against an owner who does have that player on the team. So you're rooting for your team simultaneous to rooting against the player on your team because you are playing against that player. I hate that feeling. I know that had to suck for Sip, especially considering the nature of this rivalry right here. 22.3 points from Kenneth Walker III. He's been balling as well in Seattle, 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. Down week for Tony Pollard, but Tennessee is going to be that for the rest of the season. George Pickens went off now that Russell Wilson is back. Starting for the Steelers, 5 catches for 111 yards and a touchdown, 21.6 fantasy points. A lot of it was just bully ball. Russell Wilson was throwing his signature moon ball, deep ball to Pickens, and the cornerbacks were just getting ragdolled and thrown around. It wasn't like he was doing it against quality competition. A lot of backup guys. Sauce Gardner, for whatever reason, was not following George Pickens around the field. But nevertheless, good performance from Pickens. Jamar Chase, he got in the end zone to salvage an otherwise down week from him. 55 receiving yards, 5 catches. Nothing really impressive there, but the touchdown helped. Travis Kelce also has been having a down year in Kansas City. Jordan just shipped him off and upgraded to Kittle, so the offense looks a lot scarier there for the band of misfits. Jordan Addison, 10 points. He'll get his rapport back with Sam Darnold soon enough. Not much from the defense here until you get to the defensive backs who barely got to double digits. Cameron Curl went for 26 points to really help the defense out. But most of the booms came from three guys on offense. So how sustainable that'll be down the stretch will be interesting to watch. Now, well, one more matchup here of relative insignificance. Down week for the TaylorMade Thoroughbreds. Still ended up getting the win against a relegate candidate in first place in the relegation race, the Big Rough Pugs. Black Rob, a.k.a. Robert Taylor, got the victory, 222.06 over Quentin Gibbs, 200.34 points. Also, a former runner-up in the rap championship final. Black Rob still making his case for his first championship, moving his record to 5-2, dropping the Big Rough Pugs to 1-6. Jalen Hurts really was the difference maker in this matchup after having had some down weeks while A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith missed time due to injury. He got his groove back running the ball, at least, because he only had 114 yards passing, but he still managed 25.76 points, mostly premised on the 3 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs leading the league in rushing, if I'm not mistaken, 17.7 points. Oh, maybe not. Oh, he was at one point. Oh, yeah, that's done. Still having a really good season, fantasy season and real life. Just dropped out of the top 5. He's now in the top 15. I didn't expect that. 17.7 points from him, being helpful in the receiving game as well as running the ball, helping that Packers offense elevate from last season. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 23.2 points. Chris Godwin, as I mentioned earlier, fortunate injury casualty this week. Only got 12 points prior to the injury. There is a slight possibility that he could return this season, as bad as that injury looked. A dislocated ankle is the prognosis. Still haven't heard an official timetable or an official out for the season designation. Let me see. Maybe I just missed it. Oh, well, there it is. No chance Chris Godwin returns this season. So it is officially season ending. Unfortunate blow to the receiving core for Black Rob. Still has Zay Flowers, still has Amon-Ra, and who else? Dallas Goedert can help out in the flex spot at tight end once he gets back healthy. But yeah, am I missing somebody? No. Oh, Devontae Smith can also help out as well. But that's just going to be a shaky go at the receiver position and at the running back position, because Ramondre is the other starting running back for Black Rob. So we're going to keep going here on the roster. Fred Warner, 14 points. Demario Davis, Jerome Baker are all double-digit scores at linebacker. Not an impressive performance from Black Rob, but if you pick a bad week, if you pick a good week to have a bad performance, this is the week for him in division to still get a division win, and to have his worst performance of the season as a team. Just fortunate enough to go up against an inferior opponent. Not a good score from CJ Stroud, definitely unexpected. Not necessarily Quentin's fault here. Only get 5 points from CJ Stroud playing an entire game. Only 86 yards passing. I did not know he played that bad on Sunday. I was partially watching the game, but sheesh. Past 2 weeks, as far as yardage totals, have been terrible for CJ Stroud compared to the standard he set for himself. Meanwhile, Najee Harris looked like he was in a time machine. 102 yards and a touchdown, 18.2 fantasy points. Definitely had his best game of the season, if not his career, because he's not been performing like this since he's been in Pittsburgh. Brian Robinson, right? 13 points for Washington. DK Metcalf, almost 100 yards, 17.9 points for him. And George Kittle, who Quinn just sent away, 12.2 points. And that's pretty much nope. Got some good performances on defense. Jordan Brooks gave him 15. Epineza 15 points. He's been playing well the past 2 weeks. DeMar Hamlin 14, 15 from Emerson, and 17.5 from Ventrell Miller. But not enough. Not enough. So let's see how many matchups we got left. Touched on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, my last two matchups. I spoke on what I thought was the game of the week, but what turned out to be the game of the week was that one I just skipped. We're going to touch on this one here because of the records between these two and the history between these two owners individually, not against each other. But who I thought would be a championship contender after winning the championship previously has not panned out to be that this season. Meanwhile, we have a championship contender on the rise who has turned his history and turned his legacy and wrap around over the past 3 seasons. The Jump Out Boys got the victory, aka CJ Matthews, 203 to 193.36 against Kevin Grabowski, aka 30 Days of Night. A very, very low scoring matchup, ugly matchup. I thought it was going to be much different in terms of the scoring for both owners. Still highly competitive, but not such low scoring games. Obviously, you can see another one of those major injuries in the lineup for CJ with Deshaun Watson, only putting up 5 points before he had his Achilles tear in the Browns game against the Bengals. So that's going to be a tough blow. Well, not necessarily. It was a bit filling in for a bye for Dak Prescott, but still, not having that depth at quarterback would be it would be interesting to watch. Justice Hill went for 13.8 points. Really, I think that was the difference in the matchup because he has not been a consistent contributor week to week. This is only his second double-digit game of the season. Mostly through the air, the receiving. He ended up getting in the end zone and gave CJ 13.78 points. Nothing else from the offense of note. You can see the names on the offense, some names that have been contributing more than what you see on the screen here. And Alex Anzalone went for 15. Andrew Van Ginkel went for 7 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. Definitely the difference in the game. The pick 6 was last week. But he has been balling as well. Where is he at? He's number 1. Makes sense. He has been a splash playmaker in Minnesota. I love that Minnesota defense. Brian Burns went for 14 points. So some solid performances. Oh my goodness. The defense really went crazy for CJ where the offense was stagnant. And that was the difference in the matchup as well. Demador Lenore, did he have a pick 6? Nope. I know he had a pick. Okay. He had an interception. 20 points from him. Kyle Duggar went for 22. 14 points from Kaimi Fairbairn. So a lot of support from the kicker and from the defense for CJ. That was the difference in the matchup here. And just not enough support for what Bijan Robinson did for Kevin. 27.8 points. He's finally starting to get more touches in Atlanta to help open that offense up. Amari Cooper went for a touchdown and 60 yards in Buffalo. His Buffalo debut for 14 points. And got some support from the defense and from the DBs. Jonathan Grenard finally got in the sack category. I think, he's got 5 this season. He had 3 in one game. He's been quiet other than that. Trayvon Merrick went for 14 points. Thank you for him, Kevin. And 19 from Nate Hobbs. Just not enough from the team as a whole to really help Kevin out in this situation. Only 3 and 4, still an outside opportunity to make the playoffs. And he definitely made some moves before the trade deadline. So the division is still kind of open for the Tundra as far as wild card participation, but it looks like Janine is running away. Nope. the win for CJ keeps him in the running for the division championship. And finally, what ended up being the matchup of the week, which I don't think anybody could have predicted. A 2-4 team going up against a 3-3 team. D Block Penitentiary going up against the NoCo Dogs. The Penitentiary ended up getting the victory, 242.48 to 235.6. Narrow victory. Not really in stat correction territory, but you never know. Quincy Bars got the victory over Zach Stevens. Jameer Gibbs went for 34 points. The whole offense, except for the flexes, got double-digit scoring. Brandon Ayuk had his unfortunate injury, which has definitely been the theme of this week. Even though he was in the flex spot, that's going to be a big loss for those receivers, that receiving core for Quincy. But a very encouraging score for an owner that was full speed in at least the second lane, if not the fast lane, in a relegation race. But he has moved himself out of that race for now with this performance. 18 points from Leo Chenal, 16 points from Josh Metellus, 15 from Julian Blackman, and 13 from Boye Mafe. So good performances across the board. I guess he is having a good season. Cam Taylor-Britt, I couldn't wait on him. A great score considering the circumstances, particularly in this matchup where it was a must-win game for Quincy. Definitely could have ended up being 2-5 himself. Both owners were 2-4 before the matchup, not 3-4. Both owners were 2-4 coming in. Zach is now in the second position in the relegation race. After this loss, 22.8 points from Julian Love. It's not his fault. Joe Mixon, 27.4 points. Not his fault. David Montgomery did not show up as he'd been all season. Jaden Reed did not show up as he'd been all season. Rashad White tried to cover as much of that ground as he could after he'd missed some time with injury. 26.1 points from him and 2 touchdowns through the air receiving. But not enough from the other support guys. Jermaine Pratt went for 25 points. Is he like number 5? He's number 2 linebacker in the league. It's crazy. I passed on him in every draft. Never again. Antoine Winfield came back from injury as well. 22 points with a sack. He was all over the field. 21 points from Justin Reed. Just not enough scoring from enough guys. In this matchup, if Montgomery has his normal output, if Jaden Reed has his normal output, it would have been a victory for Zach. If Quay Walker has his normal output and doesn't get injured, it would have been a victory for Zach. But it is what it is. That's the way the cookie crumbles. You cannot control how these guys show up week to week. And that's the joy and the pain of fantasy football. So looking at the schedule real quick, or the standings rather, we can see pole position again for the number 1 seed is the Queen's Brigade. Although there are 2 other owners with 5-2 records, I believe she has the tiebreaker in points forced. Oh, nope, that goes to Tez. He is leading the league in points forced at the moment with 1,766 total points. And Black Rob is in second place. Janine is in third place. And in a sneaky 4th place position at 5-2 is Jordan Parks. I did not realize his record was that good. He's been stacking those wins quietly over there in the jungle. The jungle has 3 teams at 5-2. One of those teams is not like the other in terms of total points force, but we will talk about that on another occasion. The Black Hole has 3 owners at 3-4, myself included, and America's teams is probably, no, I would say they're pretty. Every team is pretty competitive right now. Only distinction is the jungle from the other three divisions. The other three divisions are still kind of sorting out who's really good. Division week does not help that because all of the wins and losses stay within the division. But definitely going to start looking more at the playoff brackets now that we are on the other side of the season. The second half starts this week. So we're going to start determining playoff slotting, seeding, I should say, division predictions and all of that stuff in the coming weeks. I appreciate y'all. Any questions, comments, concerns, doubts, fears, thoughts, blah, blah, blah. Shoot me a DM on Discord or a message on Facebook Messenger. If you have any personal questions or comments, give me a call or a text on my personal line. I appreciate y'all. Love y'all. This is the wrap recap for week 7. Holla at y'all later. Peace.